All right. Welcome back. Sorry, everyone, for the second time. As you can see, different location. I'm in a different room, letting my computer stay off. I'm on my mobile device with Bluetooth headphones in that are at 50%. So we'll see how long I can last this time. We're going to be finally discussing Uncharted. So we hope that you enjoy. We're gonna discuss the movie, discuss the game, have a good time discussing how archaeology is integral to the stories that are told, and how poorly or well the media conducts this archaeology or presents it to the general public. So with that, let's do a round of introductions.
Oh, you gotta introduce yourself first. Come on now.
Oh, yeah.
No, that's heard so many times. I'm an archaeologist based in Florida. I've been working in CRM for the last 3 years. I've played Uncharted since they came out. I've been played it through college. I love the game. I have opinions about how it does archaeology, but that's what we're here to discuss today.
All right. I guess I'll go next. Hello, everyone. I'm Anna Kuhn. I go by a short round online. I'm a professional archaeologist in Washington State. And for the second time saying this, I have not, in fact, played Uncharted before. I'm well aware of the series. I've always wanted to play it, but I've never been fortunate enough to own a PlayStation, so there's that. But I am on this panel because I am the resident Tom Holland expert. So, moving on to Bill.
Everybody, I'm Bill Farley. If you see me in the chat, I'm under Fridge Boy, and you can ask me sometime why that's my name, and maybe I'll tell you. I'm an archaeology anthropology professor at Southern Connecticut State University, which is in Connecticut. And I watched the movie last night. I procrastinated as long as I could, and it was really an experience. I'm looking forward to talking about it. And yeah, I'm a long time player of the games. I've been playing them since they originally released, and have long loved this series. And did a whole series with Kate, who's gonna come right after me, on the Sassa channel, playing through Uncharted 4 just a month or two ago. So we're still kind of fresh on the game, I think. So looking forward to chatting about it.
Oh yeah, and hi, I'm Minniti. I go by Amit online. That's my moniker anywhere. I'm a PhD candidate, hopefully soon to be doctor, at the University of British Columbia, Vancouver. Clearly not from Vancouver, not living in Vancouver for the time being, in Boston. I've been a field archaeologist for the last 10 years. Never played the games, did the streams with Bill. And I don't know why I am in this panel. Maybe because I bring the Italian gestures to the
Vital, absolutely vital.
Important, very important.
You're curated for that.
Awesome. So we've got our introduction. So next, I kind of wanted to bring us into, well, I guess we can just kind of jump off on the sphere of, so we've already discussed the familiarity with the game. And so I guess we could just go ahead and touch on our initial reactions to the movie. So I guess maybe like when you first heard that these games were being produced, what was your immediate reaction? Or the movie?
Yeah, well, I think when I heard the movie as like a long-term fan of the games, I was worried. I was concerned. I mean, I know the movie was in like production hell for like a decade, right? And my biggest problem with the movie by far was Marky Mark as Sully, which I'm sure I'll complain about. And that's because I think you were going to talk about the Rhianna. I don't want to get ahead of us, but he was originally supposed to play. That's how long it was. He was originally supposed to play Nathan Drake, and he got so old that they had to recast him as Sully. so that was my initial reaction. It was just worry, concern.
Yeah, because it's like his age still doesn't fit Sully, so that like I really feel like this movie was made entirely around Marky Mark. Like it feels like they're like, oh well, like you're too old to play Nathan Drake now. Well, we don't want to do an old Nathan Drake, so if you're a fitting age to play Sully, but you're too young to be the normal Sully from the game, so let's do a young interpretation of Nathan Drake. So yeah, it does seem like a movie built around Marky Mark, and hence it being a production company that funded it. So. So what about you guys?
I mean, I'm not particularly invested in the video game series. I mean, my first foray in it was the streaming that we did with Bill. But I'm always wary about movies from video games because I'm from the generation that saw the first Tomb Raider movie with Angelina Jolie playing Lara Croft in cinemas, and it was bad. And then I watched the Assassin's Creed movie, which was equally as bad, apart from the parkour sequences, and I was too. So let's say that my expectations were low, but holy, that kind of reaction. And I'm also not really convinced by the casting of anyone, really. So I would never besmirch Angelina from the chat. But I don't think that was a particularly good movie. Like, she couldn't even save it.
And, like, for me, I found out about the movie through social media and, like, a bunch of Tom Holland fans and whatever, preaching about it, right? Not that I follow, like, Tom Holland fan accounts or anything, whatever. But, like, like, accounts like that preaching about it. And then they're saying things like, oh, it's the new Indiana Jones movie of our generation. And then that was like, oh, red lights there. Is that what, like, Gen Z thinks about this movie? And that's already problematic for a number of reasons, and so those were my first impressions, I guess.
Yeah, I would stand by that. I think Tom Holland could have been a good Nathan Drake.
Yeah.
If he had any chemistry whatsoever with a different actor playing Sully. I blame it all on Mark Wahlberg. I mean, that's where I think so.
Down on Mark Wahlberg as Sully.
One more time.
Yeah, we
lost you.
You lost your microphone. This stream is cursed. I'm telling you.
We're thumbs up on Tom Holland as Nathan Drake, but thumbs down on Mark Wahlberg as Sully.
As a person and as Sully, yeah.
They should have got Nathan Fillion to play Sully. That would have been good and funny. I think that would have been so much better. That's my feelings.
I had hoped there would be some weird cameo. Somehow they could bring him in, but
Nolan North was in there. They had Nolan North in there.
He could have been Sully.
Hearing his voice again was crazy when I was in theaters and saw it.
I didn't know entirely what was going on. I just, like, when I was in theaters, everybody, that scene where he was lounging on the chair, everybody in the audience started screaming, and I was just like, that's probably the guy from the video games.
Yeah, I've got my fiance who, I think he's played one of the games, but I don't think he's ever, like, fully invested or finished them. And so, yeah, I was one of the people that freaked out in the movie theater, and I was like tapping his arm, being like, "That's the guy!"
Pointing at the screen, it's like, that's the man.
I was saying last night when I was watching it with my partner, and I told him, like, yeah, I think about halfway through the movie, it transitioned into kind of a cosplay movie, which is a real problem. Like, good adaptations of games or even books tend to, I think, do their own thing. And the first half of the movie had some of that. They were sort of, it seemed like they were adapting. It was an adaptation. It was something different. The characters were a little different. They were interesting. And then the second half, it just turned into tons of, like, weird in references and the Nolan North thing. And, oh, now he's got the same gun belt that Nathan wears in the game. Isn't that, do you remember that cool thing from the game? It just turned into that sort of thing, which, of course, was going back to Angelina Jolie as Lara Croft. I think was the problem with those were cosplay movies. Like, you're fan servicing game fans instead of making an adaptation. I think that's where they run into trouble with some of these game movies.
Get the character name Sully and tying it to Uncharted at all, if you gave it a new title, it would stand alone as, like, its own thing. Yeah, during the first half, like you were saying, it was just like, this could be a completely unrelated movie on its own. It has nothing to do with Uncharted. And it wasn't until they did, like what you said in that second half, where they started doing the tie-ins and the references and bringing back the video game music and and all that stuff to kind of bring back the nostalgia. So like that was the second half was just pure almost nostalgia than it was good storytelling.
Yeah, because
so that's what fall in love with it.
Yeah, because it wasn't like Tom Holland slowly finding his way as Nate throughout the movie or anything like that, right? It was just like snap, suddenly he's that video game character halfway through. There wasn't like him, getting into that role or lore wise or story wise. It's just like, now I'm Nathan Drake.
So a decent dive into whether or not he could trust anyone and basically how to play the game. I feel like the movie did kind of segue into that pretty decently, of him getting played enough to learn how to play other people and know the language of thievery, I guess. Not saying that I know any of it, but I feel like the movie did a semi-decent job at introducing that. But yeah, but like into becoming Nathan Drake, I don't think that Tom Holland's version is anywhere close to being there yet. But.
Yeah, no, it could have been like an unnamed heist movie in which nobody trusts nobody else, but they all need to work together, and at the end of the day, everyone's double, triple crossing, and it would have been the same. Like at least the first 3/4, and then when they start flying and there's we'll talk about that. Then that's when you're like, suspension of disbelief, and then everything goes out of the window because there's flying shits. Of what Bill, I'm sure, will want to talk. But in the first part, they kind of use nice like movie tropes that work, because those are tropes that are always effective. Like when everyone has to work together and you don't know who you can trust and who's lying, and even like the treasure hunting tropes that are from not just movie but also books. Those work, but there's nothing inherently Uncharted-y about those, right? It could have been, such and such from anywhere else and not from Boston, all with an accent, and it would have been the same.
Yeah, they drew really freely from all 4 games, like constantly, and they're sometimes quite explicitly, right? Oh, well, this is they're falling out of a plane from Uncharted 3 scene, but I thought they also, I wish they'd leaned into this more, but they drew from Uncharted 2 the kind of the theme of trust and like developing trust and who can you trust. I mean, that's, you guys were just saying that, and I really agree with that. I wish they had leaned into that theme of Nathan being this character who comes into this world of untrustworthy characters, and he sort of makes the decision to trust anyway, kind of using, I don't know, they could have made it a hopeful story. There could have been something there to give the movie some meat, and I think that's a missed opportunity that they sort of dropped that unceremoniously halfway through the movie. Is this our takeaway? The first half of the movie was good, the second half of the movie was bad. Is that seems to be what we're developing here.
I mean, plot-wise, right? Action-wise, it's the other way around.
Yeah, the first half of the movie was boring. I was bored, except for Antonio Banderas, who devours every scene he's in. Just devouring scenes. So he was great, actually.
So next, I think we've discussed the film. So now let's kind of delve into the archaeology versions of it. So I know in the games, they never explicitly say that they're doing archaeology. I think in Uncharted 3 and 4 they mentioned the word excavation sites and walked around some things that just had total stations lying around, and that's what constitutes an excavation site. And I think at the very end scene of Uncharted 4, sorry for the spoilers, but when they're walking around their little island beach house, on their walls they have archaeology magazine covers posted with them on the cover. So I think Uncharted 4 was the first time you see like an explicit tie-in to saying that Nathan Drake does archaeology. So how do you guys feel about that, both in the games and in the movies? How do you think the game portrays archaeology, and how do you think that it helps the general public understand what Nathan Drake is doing?
Yikes.
Yeah, a bit of that.
There's an abundance of explosives that you would not find in archaeological excavations that I know of. I mean, unless you're like Schliemann, in which case, curse you and everyone who came after you. And this is live, so that's great. It's gonna go on video. Why aren't they documenting anything? Why are they just going in, taking a ship, going out? There's no documentation. That's not archaeology. That's looting.
Yeah.
It's. Ugh. No,
I
go
think
ahead.
there's a reason when we were playing through Uncharted 4, right? Like, we ended up talking about ethics like 90% of the time because that's like the most interesting angle on these as archaeology. And I think you're right. Like, they never really portray, even less so than say like an Indiana Jones, where he is an archaeologist. He's a bad one. He's an archaeologist from the 20s, so you sort of make an expectation that maybe he's, or the 30s or the 40s, or whichever movie you're looking at. Not the 20s, that's too early. You know what I mean? But they never explicitly say he's an archaeologist. But if we want to try and think about him as one, he's in the games and the movie, they're just ethically, unquestionably terrible archaeologists. They do everything bad that you can, and we were talking about in the chat earlier, and I'm sure we'll get into, right, each of the characters' backstories in the movie speaks to them being really bad looters, essentially.
Yeah. Well, and then, like, if you're gonna, bringing up Indiana Jones, right, and I talked about it earlier, how I found out about this movie from Gen Z folks on the internet comparing this to the youth, comparing it to Indiana Jones. And on that note, right, so Harrison Ford, Indiana Jones, is a professor in archaeology, and he's going around and he's looting essentially and doing a shit job because he believes it's the right thing to do and it belongs in a museum and whatever. With this, everyone in the movie has such a personal connection to everything that they're going after, right? Like, oh, my grandfather looted it first and now I'm gonna loot it harder. I'm gonna loot it because I want to be famous and I want to go down in history, so I'm gonna loot it even harder than you, and it's a personal thing to me and something about my brother. And so it's like at least Indiana Jones is like, I don't have a personal connection to this, but like, it's the right thing to do, so I'm gonna try. I'm gonna fucking fail, but I'm gonna try to do the right thing to do. And with this, it's a bunch of people toting, it's personal to me. It's not, though. It's not. It's not. That's a really problematic view.
It's a very bad lens to see archaeology through which you see the archaeological data, because it's never personal. Like,
yeah.
I haven't. Right, my family is poor, so maybe not the best example, but I've never felt like personally, attached to something that we needed to find, which is also another thing that is like, that's not, they have archaeology upside down, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in the movies, they know that the thing exists, and so they go look for it. But actually, in real archaeology, most of the times is, you don't know what you're looking for,
yes.
and then you find
yeah.
it, and then you document it, right? So
yeah.
This is not archaeology. This is treasure hunting with a side of loot.
Yeah.
So that's not what we do. We don't know, we know that the temple is there, and so we dig. I mean, now with deep scan, probably it's better, but that's not how the discipline works.
Yeah. I mean, like,
that's what I'm trying to say.
Like the chat says, revenge looting. That's what the movie was all about. Uncharted.
Yeah.
Revenge looting. Emotional looting. There we go. That's the title. Looting of the heart.
Looting budget. Looting of the heart is the spin-off that is like fan fiction with all the couples.
Oh my god.
That's AO3.
Ridiculousness.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're onto something out of this idea that this like personal connection. Like, we don't want to pretend that archaeology is this perfectly objective science, like where these we have no connection to our work, or we don't care about the work that we do or the people that it represents, both in the past and the descendant communities who are living today. Of course we do, and that's actually good ethical practice too. But this is a different sort of a personal connection, right? Than that. Right. Their personal connections are really excuses to do what they want, right?
Yeah.
Pretty explicitly.
And they're
just
Yeah, and they're claiming they're claiming to be, descendant communities themselves, right? But being a descendant of a looter is not being a descendant of. It's no. That's not the way to take that.
I wouldn't flaunt that.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Antonio Banderas character. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like my great-grandfather paid other men to go do the looting, therefore it belongs
to me now. Yeah, exactly.
But I have to say that the Antonio Banderas character, and mostly like his father, I would not be surprised if he was modeled on several real-life people whose family has a history of looting, because there's no other way of putting that, famous archaeological sites in Mediterranean regions, and then trying to pay off and wash what is essentially blood money and all the antiquities that they stole by funding academic research, donating to museum collections, and getting their name on parts of the museum that then need to be removed because it turns out that they were thieves. So that's like, that was the thing that I said, oh, someone actually did their work, because that's not far off, right? That is actually something that happens a lot in archaeology. Well, I mean, in the field of archaeology as a general, as a bigger thing than not just digging. And the son being shady about it and wanting to dig it all I found it very, I almost found the villains more compelling than the protagonists. Because at least they had something to get angry about, like for real, and not just, my long-lost descendant was this famous pirate who stole shit, so I need to get it, right? At least this is like, you are giving away what is my money, so I'm going to slit your throat in a car, right? It makes more sense. Please don't arrest me, but it makes more sense.
Yeah. For many people who haven't seen the movie, this is like the most. I agree that the Antonio Banderas character, who was ostensibly the villain, and his father, who's portrayed as like the good, the good, because he's decided he's going to give away all this money that his family has earned through being genuinely terrible people for generations. Like, there's a throwaway line where it's like, oh, their ancestors funded the Crusades and Franco in Spain, they're just like, this is a multi-generational monstrosity of a family, and the guy waited till he's like 82 years old, and now he's going to give away some money and be like, yeah, there you go, I'm all good now. So there was something, I think the movie could have done more with that and examining that. But that was an interesting thing to throw out there, and Antonio Banderas' character is just kind of like, I don't care, this is my money, I deserve it, and it's just sort of unabashedly sort of evil, and there's an interesting contrast there. So I agree, I think that's one of the most compelling stories in this whole thing, for sure.
That and the cat.
Yeah. The only character development that I cared about.
That was a reasonable, interesting addition to Sully's character, because Sully in the video games does not have a cat that I know of. They also should have given him the mustache for the whole game, the whole movie. That would have been important. I could have accepted Mark Wahlberg 1% more. Terrible mustache.
Did you see the end credit scene?
Yeah, that's where he has they went nuts on the like cheesy video game references in those end credit scenes, where now it was like, Sully's a great example. Right in the very end credit scene, you have Mark Wahlberg comes out and he's wearing like the Sully famous kind of like this, like a Hawaiian shirt, and he has this horrible mustache, and they throw him a cigar, and all of a sudden he's cosplaying Sully from the games. Instead of just being, I don't know, whatever Mark Wahlberg was acting in that whole movie, which is just Mark Wahlberg. Mark Wahlberg only ever plays one character, and that character is Mark Wahlberg. So that's what he was doing.
It's kind of the same thing with Tom, but knowing Marky Mark, that if there's an Uncharted 2, which given the success of this movie, there probably will be one, Mark is not going to do that Aloha shirt Sully with the mustache and the cigar. Mark's going to play Marky Mark.
He's gonna play the Sully with the tank top.
Yeah.
Like just casually. Okay, if you break into someone's apartment and they come out scantily dressed and say, I made you a drink. I thought the movie was going a completely different direction because
That would have been
like,
interesting.
that would have been interesting.
That would have been an interesting take if they just straight up just shipped Sully and Nathan. I mean, come on, that would be interesting.
I thought that was strongly implied, but that's also, you know, coming from the other side of things. It was just, why do you need to be like either you're in your pajamas or you're dressed. You're not like vaguely undressed just to show off your muscles at 2 a.m. Like, that doesn't compute in my head, but maybe I'm wrong.
I also love how Nathan and Sully's living situations were so similar. They both had these like warehouse-esque apartments. So I like picture that they were in the same apartment complex, and it was just a complex for looters only. Like,
yeah, and then they have the same super. They just, you know, they take they fight for the trash, which, as we know, for archaeologists, is a big contention point. Trash.
Tom Holland's apartment had like a rope in it just for climbing to show off his body while
fucking shit.
So much gratuitous. I mean, I'm sure well appreciated by a significant portion of the audience, but so gratuitous.
But that is also the apartment thing is also movie New York is either you have like a Carrie Bradshaw, you know, Upper West Side or Lower West Side apartment, or you have hangars. There's no in between, right? You can either be in an empty warehouse place with, you know, brick and other stuff, or you can have a very small, like, walk-in closet, basically. But that's a New York trope. That's not. I can't fill the.
Kate, are you in the same looters apartment complex? Now I'm looking at your background, like, There's like a bunch of artifacts in front of you, all laid out on boxes and crates and stuff.
Artifact? Yeah. I'm just an artifact.
Now we know why you're on this panel. You're a real live character in the movie, practically.
Surely, yeah.
We just need a
New York.
You just need a rope behind you to start climbing.
Well, at least there's a doctor. Anyways.
So I don't know what time we wanted to finish it up, but I did want to end it by discussing kind of like what movies such as this that essentially try to promote treasure hunting or looking for the past. Because I think we shared a link with you guys, but there was an interview done by BBC One, I think, with Tom Holland, and he was asked like, why do you think people are drawn to Nathan Drake? Like, what do you like about this role, and what do you think about it? I forget the exact question that he was asked that prompted this response, but he said he loved the sense of adventure that it brings, that Nathan Drake is known for, and then he also said, you know, something different about this movie is that it's based on a real treasure that has yet to be found, and he essentially said something about. Marky, Mark, and I were discussing that if anyone that watches this movie is able to find it, we deserve a cut. So in that interview, he kind of asked viewers to go hunting for this lost treasure and to give them a cut. So I just wanted to get y'all's, as an archaeologist, what is y'all's opinion on hearing a pretty well-known actor? I don't know if you guys know about this, but Tom Holland's kind of up there now. He's kind of an A-lister. How do you guys feel about really well-known celebrities and people of the public kind of promoting looting in a sense, not only as their character, but like actually as themselves while promoting a film?
As the resident Tom Holland specialist on this panel, I will say that when I heard that, and the end of that quote was, because we made that film, we will be entitled to a certain percentage, just a little thanks for the idea kind of thing. And when I heard that, as a Tom Holland specialist, my affection for that young man went down a bit, because that was kind of yucky. And I didn't like that, and I think Tom kind of missed the point there. Yeah.
I think it touches on something we talk about a lot in sort of the archaeo gaming community. Not to keep it coming back to ethical stuff, but when we the popular media representations of archaeology lean so heavily into conspiracy theory and ancient cults and racist tropes and on and on and on. You scratch the surface just a tiny bit underneath, pseudo-archaeology, which this is definitely an example of to some extent. And there's always really dark stuff underneath, right? We talk a lot about how one of the really important aspects of archaeogaming as scholars, one of the things we can bring to this is bring that critical voice about how we have to take that kind of seriously, right? The same way that film criticism or book criticism has forever taken that stuff very seriously. Mm-hmm. We need to too, because with a franchise like Uncharted, massively popular, big A-list celebrities, a blockbuster movie, right? This is mainstream culture at this point, and some of the ideas that are promoted in this movie and in the games sometimes are they're not just like, oh, that's kind of gross. They can be genuinely quite dangerous and promote pretty dangerous stuff. So it just made me recognize that Tom there probably doesn't realize how close he is to actually some pretty scary stuff when he says stuff like that.
Yeah, because these movies, these games, this media can really attract people to the career, but it's attracting them to something that is not part of this career, and we're fighting so hard to remind people of that. But I still meet people to this day that got into archaeology because of National Treasure, because of Indiana Jones, because of Assassin's Creed, because of things like that, portrayals of archaeology that are not in fact archaeology, and then they get to school and then they're paying money on tuition and going through the process just to get retrained from that line of thinking. And that takes time, and it's a problematic thing. Reprogramming, yeah, exactly.
It is, yeah. When I remember the shit show that started when Tom Holland did that interview, and Twitter was all over the place. Yeah, it's bad. I mean, I have a hatred for celebrities who don't think before speaking, before talking.
Yeah.
And he clearly did that, and I think that many people are too ready to give people a pass, especially if they're famous and young and good looking.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's bullshit. They do not deserve a pass on that stuff, especially if it's stuff that cuts very deeply into the issue of colonialism.
Yeah.
And looting other countries, right? This is not a treasure that is like in England, or that it's, in a very white Western European country. This is a treasure that is emphatically in countries that were colonized, and very heavily so. And to have the poster boy of white cis men say, oh, someone should go look for this treasure, made my skin crawl. I was very, very, very angry.
Yeah.
I get angry very easily.
Yeah,
Everyone knows that. But it's gross.
Yeah.
And even when Megan Fox does that, and she's hot, but I hate her.
Well, yeah, and it's like what comes to mind right now is like, look at movies like heist movies, right? Like Ocean's 11 and stuff like that. If they do an interview afterwards and say like Brad Pitt or somebody says to the interviewer like, oh yeah, I hope that if anyone gets inspired to rob a casino or something in Las Vegas, they give us a percentage of the cut for giving them the idea. That wouldn't be taken so much as a joke, a little bit, but not as, people would take that a lot more seriously than this, whereas this is like, oh, it's just innocent treasure hunting, it's finders keepers, right? Like Rhianna, you mentioned that in your article that you did for Archaeogaming on this movie and on the games, that this promotion of finders keepers with things like this. That's still accepted. Stealing is sexy, says the chat. Stealing is sexy.
Oh, jeez.
It's funny that you brought up Ocean's 11, because that was actually something I said last time. They should have just done this as like an Ocean's 11 movie. That would have been better. That's just
Yeah.
going back to the movie. Things they could have done. Well, we'll spend the next half hour just talking about how they could have made this movie better, and they should have hired us all and paid us millions of dollars to tell them how to do it. That's.
But not
Bottom line.
dollars coming from Lucy.
Yes, preferably.
Yeah, and to control what the actors are saying during interviews. So, like, Tom Holland says something like that, and then, you know, have an archaeologist nearby to be like, Tom, come here.
Just swat them on the head.
Can't be doing that.
You'll be a part of Tom Holland's entourage. You're like his, be his archaeological consultant.
With a fly swatter, just like, no.
I did not know he was British until literally last night. I never knew that, and I was like, I'm so dumb. I just never knew that. Spider-Man.
I mean, when has he ever done a movie where he's using his British accent? Has he done one? I've seen like 3 or 4 of his movies now, and like, it's always an.
He almost slips in this one a couple of times. That Boston accent is, it's barely holding on.
Oh, is there?
But then again, Boston was, you know, renownedly British, so it kind of makes sense. But also, no, someone in the chat is saying that it's dangerous in a culture like in the US about property ownership rights, finders keepers, and the prevalence of metal detecting and other stuff.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's something I was going to bring up with, because I try to.
Please.
In my personal life, I do a lot of work with Society for Georgia Archaeology, and it deals with a lot of, you know, I mean, like in the job of cultural resource management, you deal with a lot of it too, where you have to talk to people that don't really know what archaeology is, they don't know what cultural resource management is, they don't know the laws, because in the U.S., if it's your private property or you have permission, like, you can do whatever you want to it, because it's your land or you got permission from the owner. So there's some stories that I hear, or people that try to brag to me about things that they found on their property, and it makes me, you know, it's one of those things where I'm like, I have to, as an archaeologist, you have to be like, well, that's the laws, but oh my goodness, they're digging and they're finding really cool stuff. If they could only just learn how to document. So that's what, like, one of the things about the games is, like, they don't fully document as an archaeologist would, but at least Nathan Drake has that notebook that he keeps around where you see him draw everything. He takes some semblance of notes, but boy, if he could just get a GPS system or something.
Right? Yeah, and yeah, also on that topic too, you know, as archaeologists, all of us get asked all the time, what's the coolest thing you've ever found? And sometimes I get questions that go beyond that. So I'll say something like, oh, the coolest thing I ever found was blah, 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 blah. And then the person will be like, can you show it to me? Oh, no, I don't have a picture on hand. No, I mean, like, do you have it at home? Can you bring it tomorrow? The coolest thing you ever found, you obviously kept it, right? It's yours to keep, finders keepers.
So many times.
Right.
Many fucking times.
Right. And the trend that I've noticed in the years I've been working as an archaeologist is if I meet an archaeologist that got into this because of Indiana Jones, National Treasure, Uncharted, Assassin's Creed, all of these terrible portrayals of archaeology, Tomb Raider. You know, if I meet an archaeologist that got into it specifically because of that, when asked that question, what's the coolest thing you've ever found, or do you have any artifacts at home, there's a higher percentage that the answer is yes. And that they do have stuff at home, and maybe that got trained out of them later, but they still have the shit at home. They still started out as a collector, and they were inspired by stuff like this, and that's the issue. They're teaching people how to be treasure hunters, and they're ignoring the real practice of archaeology that there is out there, that all of us practice, and what it all means.
Yeah, it's also when you dig, like, in another country, like I usually dig in Italy. So many people don't understand that whatever we find stays there.
Mm-hmm.
That's not even a question. Like, what we find is not ours to keep. It's, you know, it's Sicily's, not even, well, I mean, it's Italy in a general sense, but it's Sicily's stuff to keep. We don't make any decision. We don't keep anything.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, the person who was the most flabbergasted about this was a border agent. When I was questioned, because I had worked in Sudan, and I have a Sudanese visa on my passport, so I was stopped and questioned. They were very nice, because I'm very white. And they were asked, oh, what were you doing in Sudan? I was like, well, I was digging with Big Museum. Oh, so what did you bring back? And I was like, nothing.
Mm-hmm.
We left everything there. That's not how archaeology works.
Yeah.
but in a very polite way.
Yeah.
Because but it's just so deeply ingrained in people's mind that of course we're gonna take everything.
Even fundamentally, like the kind of materials that are assumed, people talk about, well, what's the coolest artifact you ever found? Like these sort of portrayals of looting as archaeology tend to focus on these individual extravagant objects, right? Like we were joking last night while I was watching the movie about the 2 crosses that are the solution to every puzzle.
Yeah.
And but these gold crosses and just like, archaeologists are actually usually interested in much more mundane objects than that. We want to know about the spatial relationships between ceramic sherds or lithic scatters or whatever, right? That's the kind of stuff we think is
exactly
misfired pots pots that they fucked up.
Yeah. Gosh,
exactly.
I can't tell you how many times I find a lithic scatter and then I try to like piece them together to see if there's like a special like word or something that'll point me to a direction to find a treasure map that might point me to another direction. Like, no.
I will never ever in my life forget the scene in this movie last night where he takes the 2 crosses and he sticks them into the map and then clunks them down.
So fucking stupid.
They're sitting on a map that is representing the entire world, and these 2 honky-chonk pieces of the cross are covering what probably is like, I don't know, several thousand square miles of the Earth, and that somehow translates directly into a precise UTM coordinate on his phone, so that he just rides a boat over there and is like, there it is. So that's a sort of a side. That's
once again, he would have greatly benefited from having a GPS.
Yeah.
And also, does anyone just write postcards anymore, or do they all have to have some kind of fucking hidden clue on it with like those weird like invisible marker things that I used in 2nd grade? Like, what is this? That's so fucking stupid.
Also, how did he do any of that in jail? Or so he sent him before that, or like when did he write them? Did he do it as he went, or
in jail? In jail, he's like, "Hey, can I have some of those like magic marker things? Can I have a postcard and a magic marker?"
Yeah, or a lemon. You can do that.
Yeah.
I think they were really trying to like include. Like, I feel like the makers of the movie sat down and they said, what are all the elements that make up a good Uncharted game? And instead of like looking at what are the themes that run through it, what's the thing that makes the characters interesting, the relationships between the characters interesting, they skipped all that boring shit and they went for puzzle rooms with Catholic shit in them,
nuns,
and Latin phrases, and parkour, and gunfights. They were okay. That's Uncharted, and those were the things they tried to cram into the movie as much as possible.
They didn't even put too many skeletons, and that was of the movie. I was like, where are the bodies? Like, if this is so lethal,
no one's ever tried.
Right? Where are the bodies of the people?
Oh yeah, Uncharted games have lots of skeletons.
Thank you. That was.
But added to the fact that like they went through that puzzle, like what 4 levels of that puzzle, only for them to be underneath Marky Mark on the street of a street grate. And you're like, you're telling me for what 200-300 years, no one's just looked down and been like, oh, that's cool. Maybe we should check out down there.
That
like,
whole ladder.
Tell me that no one has gone down there before and knocked over that giant, what are they, amphorae? I don't know the proper term for them.
They call them pithoi, but they're very weirdly shaped.
That entire plot line of several puzzle boxes back to back was all to set up an elaborate Papa John's commercial. That was it. Which was the funniest thing.
I'm not even sure they have Papa John's in Europe. Now let me check.
Where were they? They're supposed to be in Barcelona during that scene?
Yeah.
Well, I was describing, so this movie was classic. I hope you guys don't mind me sharing my movie theory, but
I stand corrected. There are several locations in Barcelona.
Yeah, wow. They're all over Barcelona. That's where they spend a lot of the movie. But this movie reminded me, like, plot wise, of like I don't know, like a any Tom Cruise movie, or like any of the James Bond movies where they're just jumping around to different parts of the world because they thought it would look cool. They were like, some director was like, oh, I want to do a shot in Hong Kong. Let's go to Hong Kong. It's not in this one, but like, I want to do a shot in Barcelona. Barcelona's cool looking. And they just jump around like that for no apparent reason. And it just makes the movie so forgettable and hard to follow. To be fair, the games are like that too. The Uncharted game is like that too. You go through a whole puzzle area and then you get a MacGuffin that's like a map with like a light shining on it, and it's like, oh, we have to go to Madagascar. It's like that's the
it's this the princess is in another castle principle,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
You go there and then you'll have to go, proceed and then proceed anymore.
But it just makes the movie so forgettable, and like I'm gonna not be able to remember any of this plot in like a week.
Yeah, what did you call it? Like last night in our group text, you did like the waterfall effect or something.
I call them waterfall movies. That's my word for it. It's like
Yeah.
movies that just flow through your brain like a waterfall, and they're fun while you're watching them, and then when they're over, you're like, what was that about? I don't know. Like,
Yeah, it's very true.
I had a point based on one of the previous conversations, but I've already forgotten it. But it was, oh man, I've already forgotten it.
Did you want to bring up Chloe though? Oh, did you want to bring up Chloe and her ties to archaeology?
Yeah, I think so. When we were discussing Indiana Jones, I was going to try to sneak that in. But so yeah, when the scene when they were, traipsing through the underground puzzle pieces, and he tries to act like, how did you get into this, Indiana Jones? And she gives this backstory, which was probably the part of the movie I honestly probably laughed the hardest at this point. It was not supposed to be comical whatsoever.
Yeah.
Where she gives this story of a background saying she adored her father, and she adored archaeology, she adored finding artifacts. And she found an artifact and she took it to her dad. Dad, look what I found, isn't this awesome? And she expected him to put it in a museum like all of the great Indiana Jones movies request you to do. And she got so devastated because instead of taking it to a museum, he sold it. And she's telling this story looking so disappointed and so distraught that he would do such a thing to an artifact she found. But I'm just like, what context are we in again? Are you doing the exact same thing? Like, so he asks how you get into this, and you say you blame it all on your dad because he did the exact same thing. And I was very confused by that part. I laughed really hard because I was just like, you're very disappointed in what he does, but it's exactly what you're doing.
Yeah, it's like, girl, those helicopters were not going to a museum, but whatever.
Yeah, you go ahead, Kate. Go ahead.
No, go. No, I was just saying that everyone in the movie has daddy issues. Anyways, no, Bill.
They do.
None
I
issues.
was wondering how much of this is like a little bit of like an underbaked theme, because Sully has this backstory too that's like he was which is not from the games at all, as far as I know. I don't think so. In which he was like an army helicopter pilot. He was dishonorably discharged because he was looting artifacts from museums in Iraq, I think, if I remember correctly, and just literally just stealing them. And he gives the line.
Save them.
Yeah, he gives the line that you will find in any comment section on a Twitter thread about looting, which is like, well, they were going to be destroyed by the locals, so I had to save them and protect them or whatever. And he appears to have no remorse about this. He's learned nothing from his experiences and has just decided, I'm going to make a career out of doing that. And like, it's like this. They could have done something really interesting with that. And the games, I think, sort of do try and do something with this. So in most of the games, not so much the first one, but in every game since the first one, they have really taken pains to make it, at least Nathan, there's always a contrast between Nathan, who is like looting for good reasons, and the villain, who is looting for bad reasons. Now, we could talk about the ethics of that discussion, but usually he's trying to loot the thing to stop it from falling into evil hands of a maniacal fascist or something, or whatever. And they did not try and do that at all in this game. They were just like, somebody said in the chat before, everybody's a bad guy in this movie.
Yeah.
They all have bad intentions, all of them, all the time.
Yeah, well, I mean, they could have gone in a better direction with the looting artifacts to save them from the barbaric indigenous people of whatever place. Especially since this movie came out while we are all having big discussions about repatriation, right? And today there was the news that Oxford is giving back bronzes to what I think now is Nigeria, the Benin bronzes. And Cambridge is following suit, and like Bill, you've seen that, we talked about it. The comment section was full of people saying, oh, they're just gonna, melt them down and sell them. They're just gonna destroy them. Why are we even giving them back? And it's like, but you don't say that about Greece. Clearly, although that's a whole other can of worms. So, are we gonna, right? Even like if we make a big movie and you can't put that as a throwaway line. Like it would be better to not put it there at that point, because you're doing not only archaeology but like the whole discourse a disservice with that, and it's gross. And the Smithsonian is giving some back finally, yeah, as well. Well, we're waiting for the British Museum now.
I was gonna say, I don't think the British Museum is gonna lift a finger on that anytime soon, but whatever.
They should. But, the Met has a bronze Etruscan chariot that was looted, and it's there in the mezzanine, and if you don't know it's there, you don't know it's there. And that was stolen, and they always refused to give it back to Italy. And that is the biggest beef that I have with the Met Museum. Because they know. They know, we know, everybody knows, but somehow nobody talks about it. Bullshit. Anyways.
So how do we feel about the end of the movie, where obviously like how we mentioned that there were no good guys here. Like, if Nathan Drake and Sully had a chance to get those boats and get that treasure, they would have sold it just as much as girl from Sabrina the Teenage Witch. But, so obviously there were no good guys here. And what happened, with, like, first of all, when we were talking about, like, excavation and, like, proper recording, I would have loved to have recorded just the ships being there and, like, how the hell did they get them in there? So that's my thing. But I also just want to discuss, because, like, I feel like if this is going to be the new generation's Indiana Jones, if they proceed to continue with the series, it will be interesting, because I feel like, Indiana Jones is all about it belongs in a museum. So I thought it was a really interesting evolution for this movie to have the ending where, the treasure sank into the bottom and it became property of the Philippines.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if the treasure originally was looted from that area, but I thought that was a pretty interesting, where it's just like, I feel like I haven't seen that before, where besides like the Lost City that came out this year too, where like they wanted, or they accepted that the artifacts and the treasure is going to go back essentially to where it was located already. So how did you guys feel about that kind of semi-evolution, but not, it's definitely not the protagonist's fault that happened. They were the bad guys in this situation. It's just how the cards played out with the floating ships then crashing down.
Well, I just have to say that when I saw the movie in theaters, I actually took my mom with me, and I'm half Filipino, and when they said that the ships were going to become property of the Philippines, I just heard my mom really softly say next to me, "That's nice." Just fair. I was like,
I love that.
like no enthusiasm, hardly at all. She's just like, "That's nice." So,
they're moving with it, right? Like, you're supposed to, I think they sold it, the way I read it was, you're supposed to think that's a bad thing, right? Like, as the viewer, the takeaway is supposed to be like, oh darn, those pesky nation states getting their cultural heritage back.
Excuse you, those non-white.
Yeah, exactly.
They wouldn't pull that shit with France.
yeah.
Or England or whatever. Italy, borderline.
But I have a question. So like, with how many games there are, did they ever come to a conclusion like that? Did Nathan ever shape up and decide, like, you know what, all this shit really should go to a museum or descendant communities, yada yada yada? Did that ever happen with all those games?
So the funny thing about the Uncharted games, which I was going to bring up, but I guess we can if we still have time, but about how the Uncharted games have a supernatural element, and that wasn't brought into this movie. So I don't know if you're ever going to play the games, but
I'm
usually
going to, but yeah.
Each of the Uncharted games had a supernatural element into the treasure or the artifact. So usually the game ended with Nathan Drake making the heroic, if not good, decision of what to do with the treasure. I won't spoil it more than that, but there was a supernatural element that kind of made the decision for you.
There's a plot point, I think, in the beginning of Uncharted 4, we see Nathan has like given up the life, and he's now doing like a kind of a day job, and he's not doing the looting stuff anymore, and he gets forced into doing, you know, one last big, you know, heist, but it's for personal reasons. It's to save his brother. It's to, you know, it's for a whole. It's not for, and he very explicitly does not want to, like, he's not there to get treasure. That's not why he's there. He's there to save his brother's life. And they do some interesting stuff with that, but they frame it very explicitly. Has nothing to do with his interest of, you know, archaeological ethics. It's more about like
He's tired.
Yeah, he doesn't want to do dangerous things anymore. He's married now. He wants to live a normal life. He has responsibilities. Whatever. It's framed through that more personal lens.
Yeah. I'm shocked that he never came around in all that time, and that they never thought, like Rhianna, what you were just saying with the supernatural element essentially taking things away and taking it out of his hands so that he doesn't have to make that choice, that they never thought by the fourth game, you know, like, wouldn't it be such a twist if without the supernatural element, he just does it? So that's shocking to me. And then also, Brother Sam, I feel like if this is a trend I'm picking up, they need to just put him in a box so that he stops getting in trouble and getting lost, because...
I mean, they did lock him up, so...
Somewhere safe and keep him there.
Yeah,
Well, the players didn't even know he existed until like 3.
Yeah.
He doesn't show up till the fourth game. He just doesn't exist for the fourth game, I don't think. And the movie really does grab back, like, every plot in there, every scene in there is essentially like ripped out of one of the games, and they cram them all together. There's stuff from all 4 games just crammed in there, and so the whole plot about him trying to save his brother is just ripped straight out of the fourth game, I think. And then
the beginning with the nuns.
Seems like seems like if they do a second one, it's going to be
get the nuns in here, and we've done it.
It seems like if they do a second movie, it's going to be completely unique then. It's like they want to take away from the games. They want to get it all into one neat little package, and then, you know, Game of Thrones it for the second movie.
You'd think.
Yeah.
You'd think. But who knows?
Yeah. I thought that they were going to have this completely separate build-up to then be able to do Uncharted 1, 2, 3, 4. But I guess, yeah, because, like, since they straight up stole the plane scene and different aspects of it, yeah, I'm kind of interested, like, if they do get the green light to continue in the series, what they're going to... I feel like they're going to go straight, based on one of the end credit scenes, I feel like they may jump to 4-ish. Maybe, like, have it where he tries to rescue his brother and just go ahead and have that, and then I guess if they do a third movie, it's going to be completely new as well. I can't imagine... They haven't done any stories with his brother, so who knows?
Yeah, that was my guess. Is they basically set it up to do what is essentially the plot of 4, which is the whole thing revolves around him trying to save his brother.
That would be interesting to see on screen, like, in, you know, and not made on a, like, as a video game, because the whole, cover your ears, spoilers, the whole city of pirates would be fantastic on screen. Like, I think it would look really cool.
Yeah.
Everything else, I don't know, but, like, are they gonna show us the skeletons there? Can they get away from the skeletons if they do 4? Like, are they still gonna keep it PG-13 so nobody ever died, even though those are pirates?
As long as I thought that it was interesting that Nathan didn't even have him use a gun until like the last 5 minutes of the movie. But speaking of the end of the movie, somebody in the chat wanted us to talk about preservational issues and archaeological method.
Please.
Holy cow, man! They go wild with it in this in the movie. They go wild with it. I love those ships, man. Can you imagine a half-millennium-old ship? Just put some straps on it, lift it up with a helicopter, and fly it around.
that has been in an extremely humid environment.
Yeah.
In water, parasites everywhere, mold, all the shit.
You guys said supernatural element. There is some supernatural element holding that ship together.
Honestly.
That's where it is. That's where it is. My favorite absolutely was when he gets into the ship, for anybody who's seen the movie, and he picks up the cloves on the top of the exposed to the open air, and he smells them and goes, cloves. This is a 500-year-old clothes, whatever, however many 100-year-old clothes still smell. Wow. As an archaeobotanist, I can tell you with some assurity that those cloves would not have survived.
They're held together.
Plot protection.
Plot preservation.
Plot preservation. Whoa! You just invented a new. Somebody write that down right now.
Oh my god.
That's so good. Wow. I mean, really. That's what these games and movies do.
We could do a podcast on this called plot preservation. You guys realize?
That's so good.
Also, who wouldn't want to try Roman beer? Well, in one of the Sasa streams, we had talked about trying the ancient cheese. And by ancient, I mean ancient Egyptian. I'm telling you, that would not be a good idea. But it has been replicated. Both cheese and bread, you kind of replicate the recipe, not from the original. But yeah, preservation, fantastic. Yeah. Those claws.
My pet peeve in these games has always been, I've talked about it in many places, the paper on a desk with ink on it, perfectly preserved, pristine, readable in modern English somehow, but with a fun cursive-looking font. That's my favorite ridiculous preservational.
I also did not really understand why what they call pithoi that were clearly not pithoi had to explode. Like, why? What was like? It's not like you open a pot and it just disintegrates, right? Like you need to hit it, or like if it's already not stable, then it's not gonna.
This is funny because the one place they decided they were going to have preservation be an issue, which is those ceramic vessels. Mm-hmm. Those would have preserved fine.
Have you seen how thick the wall of a pithos is? Like, you can get things that are this thick. They're big. Like they would bury people in this.
Yeah.
That's not gonna break. That's not gonna break.
I was thinking when I was watching that scene, I was just like, "There's no way." I was like, "That thing has to be like 4 centimeters thick at least," and then she's sewing it like just her shoe is on cracking. Like,
yeah.
She's not that heavy. There's no way.
That's not how it works. Plots work. That's not how it works. Also, you wouldn't have like those janky like lids in that. You would have like something that is stuck on.
Yeah.
We need somebody to pick up like a stone tool and have it turn to dust in their hand just to prove that they just absolutely don't understand. And they want to flip it on its head altogether. The things
I'll lose my shit. I'll lose my shit.
The things that would preserve are fall apart, and the things that wouldn't are pristine.
I once witnessed in a TV show, which I don't know. The TV show was named Jack Hunter. It was a trashy, like, what you have at home with, and the real Indiana Jones kind of situation of like an adventurer, looter, blah blah. And they were, hear me out, they were in Egypt, in Amarna, which had beautiful Roman arches, because that's what Amarna looks like. And they found a small obelisk made of stone, and he was like, "Oh, we can date it with carbon-14." And I was like, "No!
Always.
No. What is that obelisk made of?" We need to talk.
No, I love when people talk about those dinosaurs can't be real because for this problem with radiocarbon dating, and I'm like, dude, that's
not how it works.
Learn what these things are before you talk about them. For the audience, radiocarbon dating only works on samples made of organic material and dating to up to around 60,000 years old.
You had to do it in a voice.
Yeah, that's my lecture voice. Oh my god.
Do we have any more questions from chat?
About our opinion.
I have one question, but I figured we could save that for last if we have any other audience questions that haven't.
Yeah, please, audience, if you have any questions, because I know you're dying to ask this panel.
Ooh, the Prometheus as an archaeology movie. That's an interesting from Foob Archaeologists. I never think of that as an archaeologist movie, but that's kind of cool. I mean, xenoarchaeology, like space archaeology, is a fun place where you can play around with the concept of what an archaeologist is, because you obviously don't necessarily held down by the rules of earthly norms, right? So you can.
I've never had the courage to watch it again since the whole like just run left or right, just run left or right. Why aren't you running left or right? So
I saw it on an airplane, like, I don't know, 10 years ago, so I don't really remember that much about it. It had some body horror in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, No Man's Sky, or like I talk about in a video about Outer Wilds, is another game that's like about archaeology, but it's about aliens that take place in space.
I'm excited to pick that up, yeah.
Tomorrow, if my PC works, tomorrow, Anna and I are going to be playing Mass Effect, which tells you, when you play like literally the first 30 seconds of that game, it tells you how important archaeology is to the series. So that's one of the reasons why we're going to be playing it.
And we're going to make it a regular series too.
Yep, Heaven's Vault, but one of the main characters in Mass Effect is literally a space archaeologist.
Yeah, no, we haven't talked about Horizon yet, but
I'm playing that right now. I'm playing Horizon Zero Dawn.
A lot of people are right now. I don't know why right now, but a lot of people are.
Well, the sequel came out just a couple of months ago, and I couldn't.
Yeah. I haven't started base game yet, but my brain can only do one AAA at a time, and until the end of this year, it's Valhalla.
The Horizon Zero Dawn games are a lot. They're really fun games to play, but boy, there's some stuff to talk about in there. Let's just say that.
I think either last year or the year before, someone talked about Horizon Zero Dawn. Either it was a panel or someone gave a solo presentation on the games. But yeah, I think ArgaCon of previous years, there should be something in the YouTube channel. So I know we've definitely talked about that in the Discord, because that's, I love that game, and then it's been interesting hearing other people's perspectives. But yeah, Horizon Zero Dawn is for sure. I haven't finished the second one, but I need to, because I've heard it's even more so in archaeology.
Yeah, I'm told.
And the chat's talking about how in Horizon they do like weird names for mundane stuff. I was just playing the game a couple of days ago, and there's like a merchant who asked you to collect these sacred vessels that might have been used for shaving rituals, and they're coffee mugs. And I just think that's a genuinely funny send up of archaeology. And
that's a smart way, though.
Yeah.
It's ritual.
Yeah.
It's
ritual.
NASA-Rama.
Yeah, exactly. NASA-Rama. Who had to read? Raise your hand if you had to read NASA-Rama in undergrad. No, you guys didn't?
No.
Chat. Anybody in the chat have to read NASA-Rama? Anybody NASA-Rama stands? NASA-Rama heads.
Oh my god.
More homework. We're giving more homework.
You don't have to read NASA-Rama.
I can give a breakdown. Essentially the breakdown of the article NASA-Rama is that you're reading about another culture that describes different cultural and religious and ritual objects, and by the end of it you realize they're describing American culture. So it's just
I've heard of it before.
Stuff like
NASA-Rama is American backwards, right?
That's right. I probably read something of it, not the full thing, but yeah, that was mentioned in undergrad.
But it uses it's interesting because it uses like the language of describing like less civilized people, and it's just describing like somebody literally brushing their teeth in a bathroom, and it's interesting. Horizon Zero Dawn does some interesting. Whoever wrote Horizon Zero Dawn had to read NASA-Rama in their introduction to anthropology class. They were influenced by that.
Oh, this is excellent. It's also like we got the archaeology joke. It's ritual in, so I think the panel is like perfect now.
Got nuns, got ritual. Yeah, I think
Alright, I think my question, if there's no more viewer questions, was if they do continue on the Uncharted movie series, or if they try to jumpstart some other new Indiana Jones type hero, or someone that is playing an archaeologist character. What do you think is a must-have that needs to be presented in media to accurately present archaeology?
That's a good question.
I mean, I have something I could start us off. I would love to just see them do something meaningful with this theme of repatriation, right? Just however they choose to do it, have that be not a side thing, not like a little, oh, if I read really deeply into this, I can see how they're saying something about it, but have it kind of be about this question. We all have been joking for ages about, oh, the new Indiana Jones is going to be, it's going to star Short Round running around getting all the stuff that Indiana Jones stole and giving it back to the countries that they came from. That whole joke. You know, it doesn't have to be that on the nose, but just have the engage with that theme critically in a meaningful way. And you know, it's still making an entertaining movie, of course, but that would be what I'd want to see.
I'd love to see an archaeologist in a movie, a real one, right? A real archaeologist in a movie, not a real life one, but a real professional archaeologist in a movie, work together with a descendant community and to talk about issues with that descendant community and work together and, like, you know, have that be the kickoff point to, I'm going to go and stop these looters from looting the thing because I'm working with this descendant community and I need to get it back for them. I need to help them. And then, you know, have the characters from that descendant community go off with that archaeologist and incorporate you know, those players into the story too, and then have them become bigger parts of the movies and have them take over at some point. That'd be nice.
Have the archaeologists be one of the community.
Yeah, or that. Yeah, even better. Yeah.
Right?
Why don't we have that? That's easy to do. Like,
right. And that is a very personal reason, especially if the community is still alive, because, like, it's ridiculous to say, oh, my ancestors, when it's like, actually your ancestors. Like, it's easier. That is a personal connection that is meaningful.
Yeah, exactly.
And it works.
Yeah.
Right. What would I want? Oh, I would want someone going in without knowing what the fuck they're looking for. Just going in blind, doing survey, starting to find things and piecing the pieces together, like, oh shit, this is what this is, right? Which is what Heaven's Vault does. Because you go in not knowing anything, and then you kind of have to piece things together, and I absolutely love that game. But that would be something, because then, as an audience, I know that nowadays the audience is to be served everything, you know, on silver platter immediately, because otherwise they lose interest. But I think it would be very interesting instead to do it the other way around.
Yeah.
Like trying to build up and try to put the people pierce together what they're kind of finding, not even looking for, they're finding it and they're like, oh, what is this? I think that would be cool.
Yeah. When Rhianna, when you first asked that question, I paused there for a second because I was like, well, if we're gonna have a super realistic movie about real archaeology and cultural resource management, that might look a little boring. It might look like Walmart going up to a CRM company and being like, hey, I want to build a Walmart. Can you do a survey? All right, thanks for the survey. Can you do a couple shovel tests? Okay, thanks for the shovel test. Oh, you found something cool. Can you do a unit? All right, thanks for that. All right, we're going to build our Walmart. But now, like, when I think about it a little bit more, like you've got also projects out there like the Chinese American diaspora project in Oregon, and they're going out with a purpose. They're working with members of descendant communities. They are members of descendant communities, and they're going out with a purpose and doing excavations for their own selves to find traces of their pasts, right? And that would make an interesting movie. But if you have white people doing the archaeology, that's the trouble there, because it's like, who is asking you to do the archaeology, and then how are you doing it?
Yeah.
At the end of the movie, the CRM firm is shopping at the new Walmart. I recently, at the start of the year, I was in charge of a project to open up a Dollar Tree up north of where I live. I'm so excited to shop at that Dollar Tree and to just be like, I put it here.
This is my work.
I am the dollar queen. Okay.
I don't know who's chat. Who's
Yeah,
using
one of my first. Sorry, one of my first projects in CRM at this company was surveying an area that was soon to be a hotel, and it's only like an hour away from where I live now. So we went and did a trip the other day, and we like drove past it, and I'm like, "You're there because
Yeah, exactly.
The only reason you exist is because of me."
You gotta go in there and be like, I'd like a room for free. Do you know who I am?
This building was shifted 15 meters to the west because of me.
Because we found things. I mean, your words sound so fancy. Sometimes we have to contend with flocks of sheep in the archaeological park. So, but they clean. So
we had to.
Clean the ground. We love them.
You guys are. The ground you're on is elevated because of me.
I don't know who's chatting on the Archeo Gaming collective handle there, but they were asking before about sort of like field level stuff, and I think that's a good point. Like we've sort of been touching on this, like just seeing a character a protagonist who knows how to be an archaeologist, right? So they're not just doing ridiculous shit like clunking their crosses together and sticking it in their phone. It doesn't have to rely on these ridiculous like. I don't know. Show them like doing some cool high tech stuff, using GIS, using ground penetrating radar. I don't know. There's some cool flying a lidar survey. I don't know. Do some neat stuff. You can do some high tech looking cool stuff in there.
That actually was gonna be my answer for the question that I had asked, which is just imagine that you have like a Nathan Drake-esque character paired with like an actual archaeologist character, and they're just like going through a jungle. And he just wants to make a beeline to the X on the map, but then like you start noticing like surface artifacts.
Survey.
It's just they're just like, all right, hold on. And then like the intense music, and they're just like throwing out the notepad, get the scale, get the camera, and they're like, wait,
get the points.
Just having to they just constantly stop to do the documentations with the proper camera and the proper scales and things like that, where it's just
the second part of that movie.
I think field work would be boring on camera, but I just feel like that would be such a funny juxtaposition of instead of going straight X to the spot, you're actually documenting the actual site around.
And then if you want to have like the fun version of something, have someone who finds things and it's absolutely shit at drawing. So when they have to find it, they're like, "What the fuck is this? What did you draw?" You're like, "Well, I don't know." Like, make the maps completely wrong. No sense of directions, no sense of proportions, all the pots are too pointy, everything is off by 20 kilometers, like something of the sort.
Where's the north arrow? We need a north arrow.
He's like, where's the scale?
I want that to be a plot problem. The north arrow's not on there, and so they're just like reading the map like 90 degrees wrong the whole time.
Yeah.
No, but you could do this all as a montage, right? The solving the puzzle montage, and instead of it just being like bullshit people like Google searching and like typing stuff into magical computer programs that spit out maps, like just have them doing like actual archaeology stuff. That would be cool, right?
And you can do that quite nicely with the map that we see at the beginning of 4, because it's the Pyrenees map, and it's like, south is north, because it was drawn, painted by a Muslim, so it's all the way on the other side. And if you have early Christian maps, east is north, right? East is up. So like that would also be something cool. But that's because I'm a massive nerd.
that was the thing in the movie. Like every time Nathan had these moments of like epiphany, that's a thing they took from the games too. They were so dumb. They were based on like the dumbest. I wish I could remember one. Again, Waterfall movie went right through my goddamn head. But like they were always so dumb. That would be a cool. Like they're reading the map. The bad guys are just reading the map upside down, and that's the bit of information that our protagonist brings. Is this map is south is north because this was written by this person, and you could say something interesting about global geopolitics being represented in cartography, which is and then putting the global north on the north and making it bigger, right? I don't know. You could allude to all that, say something really interesting and cool and critical, and that would actually be a cool piece of information that an expert would actually bring, not the dumb shit that Nathan seems to know because he, went to Catholic school or something.
Nuns.
Just dynamite.
Nuns.
We don't need anything else but dynamite.
Yeah, I mean, unless it's a movie on Heritage, in which case, unfortunately, we need dynamite. But what do I know? All right. Well, I have to go because in 10 minutes it will be mommy time.
It is. Yeah, I'm excited. Kind of.
Thank you guys for joining me. Sorry for the technical difficulties. Hopefully it's not tomorrow.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much.
We tweeted through it.
Yeah. All right. See you guys in 10 minutes. About. Bye.
Whoa. Bye.
Thanks, chat, for being awesome and super
Thank you,
duper
chat.
active.
Thank you.
Chat
Thank
was
you
hot.
all.